let's spend some time together practicing our INKSCAPE skills. What I'm planning on doing is showing you 6 small drawings, and we're going to draw 6 different objects or characters, and we're going to place them together into one big seaside scene. So I'm going to quickly just jump here and show you what we're going to draw. So we have a rain cloud, we have the sun, we have a little octopus creature, we have a sailboat, we have a starfish, and we have a dolphin. So all fairly simple shapes, but I'm going to go through a brief little tutorial activity for each one, and we're going to create each one using the basic INKSCAPE tools. So I would like you to open up your INKSCAPE application, and I would like you to choose your File menu and Document Properties, and set your page to landscape, as you see my page set to landscape. Down in the bottom right-hand corner, we'll zoom in a little bit until we have our full image, and let's get started. So let's see where we want to go first. We'll jump back to my images. Let's start with the sun in the sky. All right. So I'm going to take a look at this right here and set it over here. So I start with a couple of circles. I add a few more circles for my eyes and my mouth. That's all pretty straightforward. And then we create a sunshine pattern. It looks like the sun's rays are beaming out from its center. And then we add some color. Okay. So I'm just going to very quickly drag around that and copy it. And then we'll jump back to our INKSCAPE. I'm going to paste it onto my screen here so I can see what it is I'm doing. So this little step-by-step instruction here is what I would do if I was going to draw this with a pencil. But INKSCAPE's a little bit different, but I'm going to try and follow this so we can get some idea of why we're doing what we're doing. So I'm going to start by drawing out my big circle as seen in number 1, and I will follow that up by drawing a second circle. Now it looks like they have those circles exactly the same. I'm not going to get that precise. I'm going to center it somewhere right in the middle. Now there are center and alignment tools we can use, and I maybe will use them somewhere else, but for now I'm going to keep it pretty straightforward. I'm going to draw one eye in here and one eye in here, and to give the image a little character, I see that the eyes are not the same size, which is great. I'm going to draw another little circle. This will be the black part of the eye, and I'm going to fill this one in black. And I'm going to take that and set it right in where I want it. All right, now I want the other one to be exactly the same, so I'm going to duplicate that. So I can use Edit and Duplicate, or you can see the keystroke combinations, and they may be different for you depending on whether you are on a Mac or a PC. Now I'm going to put that eye over on this side, and then I'm going to draw one more little circle, and this one is going to be a plain white circle. So in order for me to get that circle to be just plain white, I'm going to need to go to my stroke paint and turn it right off. Now if your stroke paint's not open on your screen, choose Object, Fill, and Stroke, and that will show this pop-up window. So I want to set my stroke paint to be completely white. So there we go. There is my object right there. So I'm now going to take that and set it where I want it, and that's going to represent the glint of the light on the eye. And I will duplicate that. Again, in my case, it is Command D because I'm on a Mac, and I'll set it right back in there. And there I have my eyes. All right, time for a smiling happy face. I will take my circle. I will draw out a circle. And when I draw my circle, I have the option of taking these tools right here and maneuvering around to approximately half a circle. And if I move to the inside of that circle, it is changing it for me. There we go. And there is my version of my happy face. Okay, put it in place. Now I see here that this one has an outline, but I'm just going to leave mine with that smile. I think I like that a little bit better. Now the last thing I need to do here is do the rays of the sun coming off the actual sun itself. and I want them to be approximately this size. So I'm going to come over here and take my star tool, and I'm going to choose my star option up here. I have my star option or my polygon option. I'll choose star, and I think I counted this and it gives me 18 or 19, and I already have that set to the number I want. So I'm simply going to draw my star. Roughly the right size. I can always edit as we go. And then you have this little button right here, which is called your cusp handle. And I can pull that out or in to make the rays sharper and longer or shorter and wider. So I'm going to pick a spot that I'm happy with. Let's say right about there. And I'm going to take my star then and move it in, set it in place. Now mine happened to be gray when I drew it, but it doesn't really matter. I can choose whatever color I want. So I will set my color fill for my line, and I will set my color fill for my stroke. And I see that my opacity is turned down, so that's really dependent on what I had done last. So I'm just going to turn my opacity all the way up. So my star is nice and bright. Now I'm going to get rid of that black outline simply by clicking on it and deleting it. And I'm going to take my star shape here and I want to move it to the back. So I'm going to choose Object, Lower to Bottom. If you have a keyboard in front of you, which you probably do, you can hit the Page Up and Page Down buttons and they will do the same thing. All right, so I see here that now my circle for the start of my star is white, so I want to turn my fill right off for that. And there I have, I'm going to turn the fill off for my mouth also. Now the last thing I want to do, I want the black outline to be consistent, so I'll click back on my star sun rays bursting out and I will set the stroke paint to black so it matches everything else. All right, so there we go. There's my sun with my happy face. So now I'm going to drag around the whole thing and I am going to choose Object and Group. So there we go. I have my object. I can click on it and move it wherever I want. So I'm just going to set it over there in the corner because that's where the sun's going to be in my picture. All right, sun is done. Let's move on to part 2. So when I look at my preview, my sun is finished. Let's add a cloud. Now the cloud's pretty straightforward, but again, I will quickly copy and paste it. So I drag around there. I'm going to copy that. Close it, and we'll come back in here and I'm going to paste my clouds on there so I can see what they are looking like. All right, so this is going to be a bit of a goofy picture because I have the sun shining and I have a thunderstorm going on at the same time, but that's okay. So we're going to back right out and start again with a circle. Now my circle was left like this from drawing my happy face, so I'm going to bring it all the way around and click when I go on my circle tool. This button right here. So this finishes my circle to actually make it a real circle. Now I'm going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I see I have 6 circles in total. So I'm just going to duplicate them. And I'll move each one down and into position. You don't have to duplicate. You can draw different circles if you want. And maybe I'll do a few of those just to make them a little bit different. There's another circle. There's another circle. And there's my last circle. Again, it doesn't need to look exactly like the one in the screen. So now what I'm going to do is turn this all into one shape. So I'm going to drag around the outside of the entire group of circles. They're all selected, and I'm going to choose Path and Union. And what that does is it now makes that all one shape, which is exactly what I want. So now I need to add a little lightning bolt. So I'm going to come over here and select my Bezier tool. And when I click that tool, I'm allowed to just click to create points on my screen. So I'm going to click in that lightning pattern, keeping all of my nodes nice and sharp and pointy. Come up to the finish, double click on the last one, and there I have my lightning bolt. So I'm going to move my lightning bolt into position. There we go. And the last thing I'm going to do here then is draw a drop of water. So I'm going to draw a circle. I'm going to go straight to my object and choose Object to Path. Sorry, that's under my Path menu. path, object to path, and then I take my node tool, and what I'm going to do with my node tool is change the characteristic of this top node. So I can click on this node and move it around, but I'm going to change it to become a sharp node, or what's called a corner node. So when I click on that and zoom in a little bit to show you what it's going to look like, I have the ability then to grab these handles and move them around. And when I grab them and move them down, you'll see that this node here becomes nice and pointy. There we go. So I think before I duplicate this, I want to make my stroke style smaller. So I'm going to click on my stroke style and turn that thickness down, and you'll see the thickness of the raindrop getting smaller and smaller. All right, so I've already got a raindrop done, so I'm now going to move it into position. So let's set one there. You'll see in my colored in version, in the bottom left corner, I have 5 raindrops. So I'm going to do that pretty quickly and easily. I'll take my first raindrop. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. So one click on it and I can shrink it. There we go. One more click on it and I can then rotate it a little bit. I want it to kind of be in the same plane as my lightning bolt. So it looks like there's a little bit of wind blowing. Okay, so I've got one raindrop I'm happy with. So I will now duplicate that. And that will allow me to drag over. Oh, I moved my lightning bolt. Sorry there. I'll move it back. All right, I'll click on that lightning bolt and move it. So there's 2 raindrops. Okay, set it in place. I'm going to make this one a little bit smaller. So I'll make my original just a tiny bit smaller. There we go. And I'm going to take this one and I'm going to duplicate it again. I'm going to move it over. Oh, grab my lightning bolt again. The computer's giving me a little bit of grief today. There we go. So there's my raindrop. Move it over. Now I see a red cross showing up and I've got my snap tools on, so I'm going to go over here and just turn my snap tools off for now because I don't need them. So I've got 3 raindrops now. I'll duplicate one more. And I'll click on it and move it. And then I'm going to duplicate my smaller one more time. And I'm going to move it down so it's down here below the other 2. Okay, so there we have the basic drawing setup. Now it's time. Let's set the stroke paint for all of these to 1 so it's consistent. Okay, so there we go. 1. Select each object one at a time. Set my thickness to 1 and do the same for all of these. My lightning bolt. And my last couple of raindrops. And then the last thing I'm going to have to do here, 1. There we go. My computer's starting to get really slow for some reason. It doesn't make sense, but it is what it is. Okay. So I'm going to click on my cloud then and make my cloud blue. And I can pick, I'm going to go to my fill so I can pick a slightly different color. Just going to move over a bit and grab something interesting. There we go. And I'm going to do the same thing with all of my raindrops. So I'm going to hold down my shift key and select the raindrops one at a time. And if I want that exact same blue, which I do, I'm going to take my eyedropper and click on my blue cloud. So all of my raindrops now are the same. And my lightning, I'm going to do the same thing. Click on my fill, and I want to fill my lightning in the same color as my sun, so I'm consistent. There we go. All right, so I now have 2 parts of my image created. I've got my sun, and I have my lightning cloud with the lightning bolt. All right, I'm going to stop this video and start a new one. I'll call this one part 2, and you can click on the link and get to part 2 very shortly.